Hello, friends. This is Catherine Marie, and you are listening to Long COVID Real Talk podcast. Okay, so the thing we're going to talk about is trips. So, mainly, the first thing is how to travel when you have long COVID, assuming, obviously, big disclaimer, that you have the energy to travel at all. This is assuming that you are not in a bedbound or homebound state right now. I went to a trip where we all met in the state of Maine, and it was lovely. The thing that I had to do in order to get to Maine was I had to acknowledge that I am disabled and that I need help in the airport. This was a very difficult thing for me to do because I don't like to think of myself as disabled, and I feel like I don't know, it's just a really tough thing to wrap my head around. I'm only 42, I don't understand how all of a sudden I go from being a really, really high achieving, really active person to someone who is bedbound and homebound um, pretty frequently, depending on the day or even the hour. So, anyway, the biggest thing I can say as far as tips for how to improve your travel experience is to suck it up and acknowledge that you have a disability, whether it's temporary or permanent. We don't know for now, but you currently have a disability, and we are we are in need of help. So I went online, and the airline that we flew out of, I went online and said that I needed a wheelchair. And when we got to Chicago, because that was where our layover was, it was so embarrassing. I came out of the gate and someone was there with my name on a wheelchair, and I just kept thinking, oh my God, this is for me. you know, it just kind of was hard to just, it was just hard. I couldn't look up. I looked down at the ground the entire time, but I was really, really grateful because I had a very tight layover, and the person who was pushing the wheelchair was able to push the wheelchair very fast, and my daughter was able to run alongside the wheelchair, and my husband was able to briskly walk behind us, and we were able to get to our flight, our connecting flight, without any issue. And I was very grateful that this gentleman knew his way around the airport. He was very kind, and he got us where we needed to go. And I don't know if you've ever flown through the Chicago O'Hare Airport, but it is a cluster, and you frequently will you'll end up, at gate A1, and you'll need to go to gate E57 in, you know, 25 minutes. It's just like your layover might be 50 minutes, but it doesn't take into account how long it takes to unboard and board a plane. So it's just, Chicago is probably my least favorite airport to fly into for a connecting flight because it's so frequent that if you are delayed even a little bit, you will miss your connecting flight. So anyway, that being said, it was a very good experience going out to Maine because we had someone helping me in the airport. And we also, another tip that I would recommend is to make sure you give yourself ample amounts of time at the airport. Get there way, way earlier than you need to, so that way you have the time to walk slowly. Because, for example, when you first come in and you're getting your ticket or you're checking your checked bags, you have to walk through security, and I'm not sure if you can even get a wheelchair to take you through security, but The only experience that I had was coming off of a flight, someone giving me a ride and taking me to the next gate, which is really what I needed because I'm able to walk short distances. I just struggle to walk longer distances, especially if I'm in a time sensitive, um, what is that word? Like if I'm going to another flight and the connecting flight, the layover is not very, if the layover is very short and I need to walk very quickly. Okay, so yes, I think the thing that's important is that, acknowledging that you are disabled, that you need help, and to give yourself lots of extra time to get around the airport. The other thing is, if you can, try to get TSA pre-check or global entry. Both of those take a little bit of time to get taken care of, but it's worth it because you don't need to take off your shoes that way when you go through security. You don't have to take out the little bag with your liquids in it, and you don't have to wait in line as much. So that's something that when my little one was born, I went through the hoops to get her global entry, and I've never regretted it. It's always been really, really a sigh of relief for me when I go to the airport. And finally, I would recommend checking just about everything you can. If you have medications or something where you would need, like for instance, if you wear contact lenses and, in case a contact lens falls out or something, you have your glasses in your personal item. But we will even check our carry-on items and just make sure everything that we need is in our personal item that we put on the plane. So a lot of times, or pretty much everywhere, they will let you check your carry-on for free. And I highly recommend doing that because then you don't have to carry it all around the airport, especially if you have a connecting flight. It's a lot less to carry. The downside is that it takes a little bit longer at the end of the flight, if you didn't check a bag otherwise, to go down and get your bag from the baggage claim, as opposed to just walking out of the airport once you arrive. So hopefully all of that made sense. So I think that's everything, all of the things that I wanted to say about the actual trip itself, like the airport part. The other thing that I recommend is getting a taxi or some sort of scheduled pickup from, getting to the airport is not, it doesn't really matter how you get to the airport because where you get dropped off is the same. If it's Lyft or Uber or a taxi or a friend or whatever. We ended up using a taxi service because they have water in the car and they also have car seats already. What is the word? The car seats are already in the car. They're already set up in the car for your little one. So if you're carrying a car seat and, in one of those big red gate check bags, then you don't have to try to take it out of the bag and put it in the taxi and then, then take it out and then put it back in the bag. It's just, you can just leave it in the bag and just throw it in the back of the car. So, and then on the way back, I really, really was happy about having a taxi ahead of time scheduled to pick us up because at the San Francisco airport where we flew out of, the usually the Uber and Lyft people, they have to go to a different area and you have to walk a pretty long way when you leave San Francisco airport. So if you get a taxi to come and get you, like a company, they are able to come right up to the arrivals and pick you up right there And I can't tell you how nice it was to not have to trek all over the place to try to find my Lyft or Uber. And it cost about the same to go Lyft or Uber versus scheduling a taxi. This was a taxi company that was recommended by one of the moms in my mom group. So I was very excited to use it. And I think we'll be using it every time for sure in the future, because it was definitely worth the money, and it ended up being the same price that a Lyft or Uber would have been anyway. And it was a far better experience. So I think those are the things for the airport part. The other thing is I would recommend having water and snacks on the plane in your personal item that you take with you. That way you're just not at the mercy of the stewardesses and airplane stewards to get you snacks and drinks. And finally, when you arrive at your destination, don't be afraid to opt out of some parts of the trip, or even all of the parts of the trip if you need to, because just the fact that you've made it on a trip somewhere is amazing. And I was so grateful that I made it to the lake house that we were renting. And my sister, who also has long COVID, one of my sisters, she also opted out of several of the trips that my family went on. For example, going to Bar Harbor, going to Acadia National Park. All of these places are so fun to go to, and we have gone in the past. But we just felt that we were too tired, and we knew that the drive was going to be pretty long to get to each place. So both days that they did excursions, we opted out and we just stayed at the lake house. We slept. We worked on a puzzle. We crocheted. We did adult coloring books. We listened to podcasts and audiobooks. And we took a dip in the lake and laid out a little bit, but, nothing too crazy. And then, of course, we took a lot of naps. We slept a lot and we did a lot of relaxing and just talked a little bit. And, it was just really nice to relax and not feel pressured to do all of the things that all of the able-bodied people want to do. And my family was really great about it. They were not weird about it or anything like that. And they were just happy that my sister and I even made it out there. So those are my tips and tricks for how to travel with long COVID. I hope that you enjoyed them. I hope that they are helpful to you. And please feel free to comment for the episode if there are other tips and tricks that you know of or that you think of or that you've used, so that other people can read them. And I do think that there's a part of long COVID that is really, really psychological, because you're dealing with such a profound effect on your life, and it would affect anyone mentally if they could not go on excursions with the rest of their family. So just having the ability to just enjoy being at any trip, going anywhere, doing anything that you do is a win. It doesn't have to be an extravagant trip. It can be a weekend trip. It can just be going out to visit a friend sometime, even if you're tired the next day. Don't limit yourself just to try to prevent every possible flare-up, because we know from experience and talking to each other that you can't stop flare-ups from happening. It's not possible to prevent every flare-up, and you have to live your life. That being said, you don't want to do anything too crazy or too out there, but I think that moderation is good, and I wish you the best in all of your attempts at moderation and travel. Okay, that's all I have for today. Thanks for listening, and we will talk again real soon. Okay, take care.